Welcome to the ACE podcast, everyone. My name is Darren Joe. I'm your host. And what we do on this show is talk about how you can manage your well-being as a solopreneur and as a self-employed creator. This past week, I was in Hue, which is the ancient capital of Vietnam. It is where the Nguyen emperors ruled the country for nearly 150 years, from 1802 to 1945. The imperial city is here. There's many ancient pagodas, and the burial grounds of these emperors litter the city. And you can find just this really magnificent ancient architecture that you can't find anywhere else in Vietnam. Every time you enter the imperial city from north, south, east, or west, you have to pass through these giant gates where you look up and you're kind of in awe of the gate, and it reminds you of just how powerful these emperors were and just how powerful they considered themselves to be as well, right? But also, you realize that their grand creations, their grand imperial city and their grand tombs are rusting away and are in disrepair. It's a really interesting contrast. I think it inspired this week's podcast, which is from my book about managing your well-being as a solopreneur and dealing with the inevitable failure and anxiety, instability, and loneliness that comes with this path. Yeah, and that's 4 wet blankets to throw on you. This life can be really thrilling and amazing, but there's always a flip side to the values that you're pursuing in your work life, right? And so in the book, I talk about how to deal with each of these 4 horsemen, as I call them. And one of the big ones is failure, of course, because as every creator knows, or every entrepreneur knows, you're not going to score a hit every attempt. You're not going to make every shot you take. That's just not how the game works. So failure is part of this career. How can we deal with the failure and learn from it and move on as quickly as possible, right? And that's a big challenge of this life. I want to share a passage from the book about a mindset that has helped me deal with failure. And I'll link it back to Hue at the end of the show. So this passage is called Be a Nobody. Business rejections are tough, but I find personal rejections even tougher. Nothing hurts more than when someone who captures your heart is not interested in you. The denial can be outright and direct or agonizingly slow and subtle, but when the dust falls, you end up alone, heartbroken. I used to wallow in self-pity for weeks, sometimes months after a breakup. One time, as I told my best friend about the end of a relationship, I burst into tears, crying into a bowl of kimchi jjigae. That Korean restaurant became immortalized as Breakup Cafe. And yes, I don't like to pass down that street, still to this day. There are a surprising number of parallels between business failures and breakups. They both crush the spirit. Some part of you just can't get over what should have been. We wallow in stubborn attachment to our desired alternative reality, complaining to our friends and dragging out the drama by resenting and punishing those who turned us away. What a waste of time. And what painful delusion. The great American poet Maya Angelou had a rule. When someone shows you who they are, listen. Our ego, desires, and attachments muddy our ability to see and experience reality. They make us force something that's simply not there for months and sometimes years. A tonic for failure, both business and personal, that has helped me is to remember Bruce Lee's paradoxical advice to be a nobody. One of the most iconic and ambitious movie stars of all time, Lee wrote, "I must give up my desire to force, direct, strangle the world outside of me and the world within me in order to be completely open, responsible, aware, and alive." Being a nobody gives you the superpower of heightened awareness. Being a nobody allows you to respond naturally and easily without all the rigmarole required to caress your precious ego. Being a nobody allows you to accept reality and to move like water, rest like a mirror, and respond like an echo. Being a nobody puts you in your most fluid, unencumbered, effective state. We need to stop fighting imaginary battles. Instead of fixating on what my ego craves and how someone or something should be, I can acknowledge what is. In this case, she's sending clear signals about how she feels. You are not a priority for her. Time to let go and make room for women who value you. Thank her for her lessons. Drop the comfortable identity of being a victim. Wish her the best with her career and life. As entrepreneurs, we are tenacious and stubborn. It's difficult to know when to keep going and when to let go. But banging our head against the same wall serves no one. Being a nobody helps us see the wall that doesn't need to be there. Yes, we must hold a strong vision for our lives, but equally important is remaining flexible and open to how we get there. The irony is that holding a view of our astounding insignificance is what allows us to achieve our limitless potential. So that is just a small part of my book. You know, if you're interested in getting a reader copy of this, you can go to our Facebook group. Just search Upstartist on Facebook and you can find us there. And I'll kind of be sharing first reader drafts with those who are interested because, of course, I'd love to hear others' feedback and their experiences as well. So yeah, check out the Facebook group. I'll put a link to it in our show notes for this episode. But yeah, being a nobody, that has really helped me deal with failure and to realize that in the grand scheme of things, you know, it doesn't really matter. I mean, failure hurts like hell, but if we can not get so attached to the outcomes we want and that we desire, we can be quicker to learn whatever lesson we need to learn from that failure, right? And so much of this comes from being a nobody. It reminds me of my favorite quote, which is from Norman Lear, who is a famous American TV producer. And in an interview, the interviewer asked him about his life philosophy, and Norman Lear said something like, he knew a rabbi that insisted that you should have 2 pockets in your garments that you wear. And in one pocket, you should keep a slip of paper, and on that paper, what is written is, this universe was made for you. And in the other pocket, you keep a slip of paper, and on that slip of paper, it is written, you are nothing but dust and ashes. And the rabbi would reach into whichever pocket he needed to live his fullest life. And I just love that paradox that you are everything and that you are nothing. It doesn't seem to make sense on the surface, but I think this has been a core philosophy of mine that has really helped me to deal with trying and failing, is to hold, you know, these 2 contradictory ideas in your mind. When you think that you can't do something, right, or you're scared to do something, you're scared to try something new, remember that everything in this world has been created by, you know, other humans who were probably not that much smarter than you, as Steve Jobs famously said. And I think about, you know, Mimi Quadimer, who was on the show on our most popular episode, I believe episode 15, and she talked about how to defeat doubt, we can remember what the Buddha did, which on the night of his enlightenment, he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, and the demon Mara was tempting him with all sorts of temptations. And finally, as his last-ditch effort to distract the Buddha, he told the Buddha, you don't belong there. That seat is mine. Give me my seat back. And the Buddha, the night of his enlightenment, you know, is sitting there. He touches the ground, grabs a mound of dirt, and says, this earth is mine. I belong here. And then the demon Mara shrinks away. And then that morning, the Buddha gains enlightenment. You know, and that's such a powerful metaphor that this universe was made for us. We can do amazing things during our time here. And we need to remember that. That's in one pocket. And then when you fail, which you inevitably will, to remember that you are nothing but dust and ashes. literally, that after you die, it can take 3 to 100 years for your bones to just turn into dust. I mean, you're nothing in the grand scheme of things. If you can keep that in mind and kind of put your ego aside, failure is not such a big deal. Now, it's obviously easier to say than to do, but being a nobody, as I read to you, or remembering that you're nothing but dust and ashes, takes the edge off of failure. As Bruce Lee says, be like water. You can't hurt water because water is formless. You can't wound water because there's nothing there. It has no shape. So in the same way, if we can be a nobody, what is there to hurt? So this might seem really philosophical, but it has really helped me, and I just wanted to share this with you as well. Being in the ancient city of Hui, what better reminder is there of this paradox, that this universe was made for you? I mean, these emperors thought they were the finger of God, that they had the mandate of heaven to raise taxes by 30% to build their own tombs. And they built these magnificent palaces that aren't anywhere else in the country. This universe was made for them. They truly believe that. Yet, in the grand scheme of things, Hui is off the radar of many Vietnamese and many around the world. I mean, it's this beautiful city, but many times, it is during COVID, to be fair, but many times when I would visit these tombs and palaces, I'd be the only person in this huge, immaculately designed burial ground, that stretched on for acres. I would have literally, like the emperor, this entire plot of land to myself to soak in that energy and reflect upon, some of the greatest architecture you can find in the country. How quickly these emperors are forgotten. How quickly no one cares about them. So, yeah, 2 pockets. In one pocket, this universe was made for you. In the other pocket, you're nothing but dust and ashes. I hope you take something away from this episode. If you do want to read the book, get a reader draft, do find our Facebook page, Upstartist. Just search Upstartist and you'll find us there. And we'll see you on the next show. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe and leave us a review on your podcast app. It helps more people discover this show. Also, you can find all the show notes and links mentioned in this episode at upstartist.tv/ASE. That's ASE. Hope to see you there.